Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Restoring Hope with Crosswinds Counseling. I'm your host, Curtis Smith. Thank you for joining us tonight. And thank you, as always, to our community partners who make it possible for us to be here each and every week. Shepherd Community Center, Tesco, and Prime 47 downtown. Without the support of these tremendous companies, we would not be here at WHMB every Thursday night. Well, tonight we are in for a real treat. Todd Huston is here. He is the Speaker of the House in the Indiana House of Representatives, and he joins us tonight for two segments. Todd, thank you for carving out time for us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Speaker of the House in the House of Representatives. That's a big title, big job. I know you've been the Speaker for about 2 years. What have these last couple of years been like for you?
Well, probably like for everybody, they're quite interesting. A time that none of us could ever imagine. I became Speaker literally the week of the World Health Organization declaring a worldwide pandemic. So,
wow.
We kind of all went through the pandemic together. Obviously government was front and center in a lot of those discussions. So yeah. It kept me very busy. And post, as we continue to transition through it, we've obviously had to address things around the economy and healthcare and things that we hadn't really anticipated prior to March of 2020. So it's been a great experience, and it's been an experience where I say I get to learn something new every day.
So there's probably not a good comparison pre-pandemic, post-pandemic as Speaker, but you were in the House you've been in the House for about 10 years?
10 years, yes.
Yeah, so you had 8 years or so without being the Speaker.
Yeah.
What was that transition like from just being a member of the House, and I don't mean just in a disparaging way, but simply being a member of the House to being the Speaker? That seems like a big step up.
Yeah, and I had the privilege of working with the prior Speaker, Speaker Bosma, quite a bit, and being able to watch him. Chaired the Ways and Means Committee, which is the committee that does the budget. So I had some experiences. Like anything else, you're going to gather more experiences throughout the process. And but the biggest thing is when you become Speaker of the House, you're in charge of the body. You set the legislative agenda, and you have a much more managerial and administrative duties.
Yeah.
And those are things that you learn through experience.
What does that look like when you guys are out of session? I assume in session you're just slammed, you're busy every day, it's wall to wall. Out of session, does life look different for you being the Speaker versus just being a member of the House?
Well, I jokingly say that I don't know for sure because the last 2 years have just not been normal in any way, shape, or form. You're certainly more busy. You have more responsibilities when you're a Speaker. Both from a policy side, from meeting with organizations to the political side. So it's certainly much busier as Speaker than it was prior to being Speaker. I think the great thing in Indiana is we're a part-time legislature, so most of us have other jobs, and it allows us to integrate back into our communities, understand, focus on our work, and it gives us a more well-rounded and balanced perspective. And that's always been important to me. I just have a little more time to make sure I have to balance the roles of the Speaker and other issues.
So let's talk about the 22 session, which ended a couple months ago. Looking back, what are some of the things that you're most pleased with, most proud of that you guys accomplished?
Well, I think we accomplished, the big one for us was the past, largest tax cuts in Indiana history.
Right.
We feel like we have this opportunity, and particularly in this era of incredible inflation, we've got to make sure that the government's being wise stewards of the money and always reminding ourselves that it's Hoosiers' money, and we want to return as much of that and keep as much of that in Hoosiers' checkbook. So we're proud of that. We've made a significant economic development bill that's helped land these two major announcements with more to come. The Stellantis deal of over $2.7 billion investment in Indiana, the Lilly deal, $2.1 billion. So, I think we've continued to put Indiana on a path, in economically for Hoosiers to feel good about what's taking place in their state, that it's a great place for people to live, work, and play, and will be that way for future generations.
Economics are always important.
Yeah.
It does feel like right now in this state of inflation that we find ourselves in, that as a civilian, as a consumer, it feels more important. On your end of things legislatively, does it feel like more and more that's what you're hearing from your constituents, is to focus on the financial end of things, and that's where most of the, I don't know if strife is the right word, but most of the pain points for them is coming in the world of economics?
It is right now. I mean, I always say it depends on who you talk to. For certain people, they have their specific issues. On a more global basis, it's absolutely, people are feeling it. They're feeling it when they go. Obviously, they see it at the gas pump and gas prices. They see it when they go to the grocery store, and what they used to spend, what they used to get, it's cost them 50 to 100% more.
Right.
Seeing their utility costs. So that's the number one issue we're hearing a lot about, and we'll have to continue to address because. At the end of the day, when people don't feel financially secure, it creates other challenges in the social community system that are problematic, and so we're heavily focused on that, making sure people have the skills they need to have good careers, and that we're wise stewards of their tax money.
I know another area that you've been passionate about and done a lot of work in is education. Tell me why you're so passionate about education and what kind of progress we've seen over the last few years in Indiana.
I just believe education is how you change the cycle of poverty. It's where people make, social mobility advancements, and it's where, opportunity exists for all. And we have been heavily focused, and something I'm a great champion of is school choice. That children and families need to send their school that best meets their child's need, whether that be a traditional public school where I sent my kids, a charter school or a private school, that the family should be able to choose where they send their kid because each kid needs a specific education to meet their needs. And we've made tremendous progress on that. I think we have the best school choice program in the country. What we found is when we've done this, we've watched schools offer unique types of programming. I think it's made our traditional public schools even better. And and I think, again, it goes back to giving that student and their family the choice that they need to find the right fit for them. And we're continuing to advance that. I think it's a huge feather in the cap for Indiana to have that type of program. We need to continue to expand it.
Wonderful. Speaker Huston joining us tonight. We're going to continue the conversation, part 2, coming up in just a moment. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Restoring Hope with Crosswinds Counseling. I'm Curtis Smith. We're continuing our conversation with Todd Huston, the Speaker of the House in the Indiana State House of Representatives. Todd, thank you so much for spending time with us. Let's shift a little bit and talk about mental health, which is obviously what we focus on here at Restoring Hope. It's such a huge area of concern across the country, but even in the Hoosier State, we have seen numbers over the last several years, even pre-pandemic, that were not very flattering to our population. What do you look at when you look across the landscape of mental health, helping us get better as a state? What do you try to gauge, and how are you and the House and all of our governing leaders trying to make us better?
It's the number one issue that people talk to me about.
Which is really saying something, by the way.
It is saying something. That we talked a little bit earlier about inflation and economics, but as a holistic, right now, mental health is at the top of everybody's mind. And look, I think we would admit nationally we're in this crisis mode where, I think, as you noted, pre-pandemic we had issues. But within the pandemic, I think the isolationism, the inability for people to interact, those key engagements, I think, really are so important to all of us and our psyches. We're so disruptive, and particularly in young children. So, we in the 2021 state budget, we put $100 million towards mental health efforts, trying to leverage best practices across the state. We have to continue to do that. We have to, but the biggest problem we have across the state, across the country, is we just don't have enough providers.
Yeah.
And we're struggling to get kids to go into that field at the college level. And we have to put incentives in place because, right now, the most difficult challenge is that if people identify with the mental health problem, it often takes them weeks to be able to get in to see a provider. And by that point, a lot of damage can be done. We've seen it with addiction, unfortunately, with suicides, with tragic circumstances. So, what we're trying to do is really incentivize, thinking about how do we incentivize more people in that field. I think we're going to have to take a look at the licensing of these fields. I mean, you can't create barriers to entry. And I was talking to a community leader yesterday, and we talked about how do you do more peer-to-peer, right? I mean, just having that connection with somebody, that connection that somebody that you can share with, a mentor, a person that you had, in my world, for me, I'm very faith-based, so, that's a very important thing to me, but somebody that I can connect with, a pastor who can work and talk and help me or anyone else through what they need to go through, because it impacts all of us. We all go through these challenging moments in our life, but some people have even greater circumstances. And how do we build that connectivity is important, and how do we find more people in professionals interested in this career is going to be critical.
It's such a weird dichotomy to me, because it's such a personal thing.
It is.
And it affects everyone differently. Everyone has a different mental health outlook, and we're all in different spaces. So to be able to try to create something legislatively that helps everybody in a blanket fashion has got to be really tricky.
It's not going to happen. I mean, we have to understand the role and the ability of government. That's not going to happen. I think what we can do is, we fund higher education. How do we put programs in place to get more students into these fields? How do we do licensing, and how do we look at our licensing to make sure we're moving barriers of entry into this? I think that those are the types of ways that we can help. I think, it's imperative for community-based organizations, for religious-based organizations, and others to step up in this world too, because again, it's about relationship, right? Now you take that next step, and if somebody has a substance abuse problem, or they have a problem that needs to deal with a medication, that's a different level of services, and we certainly appreciate that. But we're finding so much as you talk to people, it's just a disconnect in relationship. I'm afraid social media, I'm afraid, that we've allowed technology to interrupt the relationship aspect of life, which is so critical. One of my great frustrations with the pandemic was, we were pre-pandemic, we were saying too much screen time. We need to get people out. We need to get people, particularly kids, out in their community, out of their house, away from the computer. And then we switched that messaging so completely to say stay at home. And it's everything
else shut down.
Yeah, and I think we're paying a societal consequence for that. Leaders, all of us have to step up and we have to rebuild society, which is that community aspect, which is, I think, is important to a lot of the other things that we struggle with, right? Like in this sense of the inability to understand one another, breaking outside maybe our circles of people that agree with us, and people that share our same opinion, to go meet other people that have had different opinions, who have different types of experiences. And again, I think that community social aspect of it is critical. I think we really have to lean back into that, and because I think we're paying the price for the actions that we're taking, I think, with good intentions, but ended up having unintended consequences.
It's easy to focus on negative stuff. The economy is not great. Inflation's out of control. The mental health space needs huge improvement. But it is still a great time to be a Hoosier. Our state is in much better position than so many states. From your vantage point, talk about where Indiana is in relation to other states, even in the Midwest, and I assume you're pretty proud of that.
I'm super proud of it. I want to build on what you said, though. I think I've been in the process of, prior to the pandemic, I started to read a lot of history. And if you read a lot of history, you realize, as much as we want to believe every circumstances we're in is unique, it's not. We've all lived, there's been the key buzzwords of today, tribalism and division, those types of things. That's been part of human history since the beginning of time. Certainly been a significant part of our history at different points in the country. There's no better time to be alive than right now. There is more opportunity available to people right now than ever before. Matter of fact, I read in one piece about mental health that one of the challenges we have is we have almost too many opportunities. That becomes almost paralyzing. Wow. I wonder if I'm making the right decision because I have so many of them the ability to make. And I think we have to reset ourselves built back on optimism. I'm super excited about what's taking place in Indiana. We have so many different opportunities for people in the careers, and I think we're still the greatest place on earth for Hoosier hospitality and Hoosier friendliness. And we should never lose sight of that. I think you're right. You can get pillaged every day in the media or on social media with things that are negative. And there's certainly challenging things taking place across our state, our local communities, and across our country and across our world. But if you really take that step back and you say, look, do I have more opportunity today than I've ever had before? No matter who you are, I think the answer to that question is yes. Yeah. It's how do we take advantage of it? How do we help other people be successful?
What a wonderful, uplifting message. Todd, thank you so much for spending time with us.
Appreciate it.
Speaker of the House, Todd Huston. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Restoring Hope with Crosswinds Counseling. In this week's Counseling Corner segment, Daniel Cervantes joins us to teach us a little bit about one of the therapy treatments he uses to help Crosswinds clients.
Hello, my name is Daniel Cervantes. I'm a counselor with Crosswinds Counseling. Today I'd like to talk about a modality of treatment that I find very helpful. It's called dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT for short. So where did dialectical behavior therapy come from? It was originally developed by Marsha Linehan, created over 25 years ago, and it has evolved since then. DBT is an evidence-based psychotherapy that began with efforts to treat personality disorders and interpersonal conflicts. DBT has been helpful with strengthening one's ability to handle distress without losing control or acting destructively. So what is DBT? DBT is a modified type of cognitive behavior therapy. It was designed to help individuals live in the moment, increase the ability to cope with stress in healthy ways, regulate emotions, and improve one's relationships with others. Dialectical is being able to see two sides can be correct even if they are conflicting. For example, a coin has two sides, heads and a tail. Both make up the coin. Another example is that it can be snowing and springtime, just like in Indiana. They're conflicting, but it happens. DBT utilizes skills to improve 4 specific areas of functioning to help control a person's mood, thoughts, and impulses. Each area has a basic and advanced skill set. These skills are mindfulness skills, distress tolerance skills, emotion regulation skills, and interpersonal effectiveness skills. DBT can be useful in treating mood disorders, suicide ideation, increase one's ability in changing behavioral patterns, such as self-harm and substance use. DBT is also effective in treating overwhelming and destructive behavior. So let's talk about mindfulness skills. Mindfulness skills are to be considered meditation skills. Mindfulness skills are the skills that can help one be more aware of their thoughts, emotions, physical sensations, and actions in the current moment without judging or criticizing themselves, others, or the experience. It is like taking a mental note of everything that is happening in you and around you. Now let's talk about distress tolerance skills. We have those times when our thoughts make our situation much worse. So distress tolerance skills are used to increase our ability to handle stressful thoughts and situations. They allow us to cope with distress and pain. And this can be physical pain, like stubbing one's toe, or emotional pain, like losing a friend. Distress tolerance skills are designed to allow us to cope through a problem until we are in a safe place and process our thoughts and feelings later. Now, emotion regulation skills. Emotions are our body's signal that tell us if we feel good or bad. Emotion regulation skills help us to identify our primary and secondary emotions. They allow us to recognize and regulate how we are truly feeling and learn to cope instead of avoiding or using destructive coping strategies to mask our true feelings. Now, interpersonal effectiveness skills. So interpersonal means person to person, and interpersonal relationship skills are just that. They give us skills to improve our ability to have and maintain person-to-person relationships. These skills help individuals develop healthier social skills, assertiveness skills, and listening skills. So thank you for your time, and I hope you've enjoyed this information. And if you want to know more about DBT, you can see us at Crosswinds Counseling.
Welcome back. Each week here on Restoring Hope, we focus on that word, hope. Tonight, Crosswinds executive Gordon Haynes is here to look at the concept of hope through the lens of the future.
Hi, my name is Gordon, and I'm a member of the Crosswinds executive team. Over the past several months, I've talked to you about hope, and it's such an important topic. And interestingly, I was reading a book, and I found a definition of hope that really spoke to me. And that definition is this: hope is the strong belief that your future can be better and brighter than your past, and that you have a role to play in that. I think that's really critical. What's our role in realizing the hope that we want to have? People that have hope are zealots about really going after their goals. They actually set actionable goals and work towards something because they have that strong hope that God gives them. In Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11, God talks about the hope he has for us, the hope that we find joy, that we find success, that we're happy. And he really wants that for us. And so, to have hope and then to realize that hope means that we have to work for it. Doesn't mean we'll get it right away. Doesn't mean there won't be setbacks. But God wants us to succeed and is there with us. We have this misconception that as a Christian, I'm never going to have adversity. And that's really false. The Bible tells us that we will have adversity. But the promise and the hope that God gives us is that he will be with us through that adversity to help us gain success. But we have a role to play. I have an example for you. I know a young police officer. He was shot in the line of duty. Fortunately, it wasn't a life-threatening wound, but he lost the use of his left arm. The doctors weren't sure how much use he was ever going to get back because of the damage that was done to his muscles. At any point in time, he could have taken a disability, left law enforcement, and gone and pursued some other career, but he didn't want that. The doctors gave him hope that he could recover, and that's what he wanted to do because he felt his calling was to serve people through law enforcement. I'm happy to say a year later, he's back on full duty with full use of his left arm and doing amazing things. And the way he got there was he set a goal. He hoped that he could get back to doing what he was doing, and he went after it. And it isn't that he didn't have setbacks. It isn't that there weren't disappointments. It was that he had the hope that God gave him that he could have what he wanted, and he went for it. We can all do that in our life. We can know that God has that hope and that promise for us, and that all we have to do is work for it and trust in God.
Thanks for that great word, Gordon, and thanks to all of you for joining us. Thanks, of course, to our sponsors as well, Shepherd Community Center, Tesco, and Prime 47 downtown. We'll see you next Thursday night.